If you are non-native speakers of English and planning to study or work in English-speaking countries such as Britain, America, Australia, and New Zealand, then you need to have a certificate stating your level of English language proficiency. One of the most commonly accepted proficiency tests is IELTS, that stands for International English Language Testing System. The test covers all 4 language skills, namely listening, speaking, reading, and writing. The test also has 2 modules, General for those intending to work or migrate, and the academic module for those intending to study in English-speaking countries. Our presentation today focuses on the academic module. In UPI Language Center, where Nindya and I are affiliated to, IELTS preparation program has been offered since 2015. Based on the survey on the program evaluation, most of the participants of the program reported their struggle in developing control of writing English text, particularly in responding to IELTS writing task 2. They also mentioned that their low writing score could be attributed to their limited ability to read critically that they believed contributed to their inability to generate and develop ideas. It is against this background that our study attempts to implement a pedagogy intervention that incorporates reading alongside writing. That is reading to learn pedagogy that will be explained in a minute. Now, we review what available studies have reported about IELTS writing tasks. In terms of teaching strategies, the literature indicates that mind mapping, debate, and think aloud are some of the most commonly implemented strategies to help students accomplish IELTS writing tasks. While these studies focused on idea generation, other studies investigated text types responding to IELTS writing tasks. A study by Coffin, for example, shows that there are similarities between what is expected in IELTS and academic writing, that both require the composition of hortatory and analytical essays. However, Moore and Morton found that these texts are also different in terms of genre, information source, rhetorical function, as well as object of inquiry, which implies that there's a need for a specific preparation program for IELTS writing. And this is where our study comes into play. We propose a teaching methodology that carefully scaffolds instruction to assist students' vocabulary and idea development according to the key genres found in IELTS writing task 2, especially on students with low proficiency. In particular, our study is framed within this question. What are the linguistic demands of the IELTS writing task 2? And what are the linguistic challenges faced by the students as indicated by their IELTS writing achievements before and after the teacher's classroom teaching with reading to learn pedagogy? Now, as I mentioned earlier, the teaching methodology that we use in this study is reading to learn pedagogy. This is one type of genre pedagogy that was first developed to support disadvantaged group and Aboriginal students in Australia to remedy their low English literacy result. This pedagogy has also been proved effective in other contexts, as indicated by an increasing number of studies in Indonesia, Hong Kong, Sweden, and the United States. So, what is reading to learn pedagogy? It's a pedagogy that is informed by a functional language theory with its text and context model that emphasizes that a text is a unit of meaning designed to achieve specific social purposes. To achieve these purposes, a text unfolds in stages depending on its intended audience, field, or subject matter, and whether it is spoken, written, or multimodal. Based on this model, the reading to learn teaching and learning activities are organized through intensive strategy, which will be explained by my colleague in a minute. Yeah. Harni Kartika Ningsih, time is yours now.
Okay, thank you for your talk. And then let's get on to the methodology or how we did our pilot project, okay? So our study is basically a pilot project, as I mentioned before, but instead of implementing action research, which require quite a long-term period or duration, we would like to explore this pedagogy, and it is what we call as proof of concept. So what does it mean by this concept is that we try to have a look or test the water, or basically explore the efficacy of the reading to learn method in teaching IELTS writing. So this is because IELTS writing is relatively new, and even though reading to learn pedagogy has been established and have indicated success in the implementation, but IELTS writing is kind of new context, so we need to explore how this pedagogy could work out. To move on. So for this study, we designed it into two phases. The first phase is the teacher training, in which we train the teachers who will be involved in the study to learn the pedagogy of reading to learn. This is relatively new, especially in the language center where Ika and Nindya worked. So this teacher training is important. And the second phase is the implementation, where we adapt the practice from the teacher training. And in this implementation, we selected one teacher to focus, and Nindya is here as the teacher who involved in the project. Okay, let's move on to learning the phases, phase 1 and phase 2, to be precise. So in phase 1, which I mentioned before, teacher training, the training involved two main points. The first one is meta-language training, or where we develop the knowledge about language. Here, as a text-based pedagogy, we train teachers to understand the concept of genres and register and other straight-off language, as well as learn to select and analyze text. But the thing is that because we're dealing with IELTS writing task, we are trying to be more specific in IELTS writing task 2, which it develops argumentative writing. Then after we learn the knowledge about language or meta-language training, we move on to pedagogic training, which means that we learn to apply our selected and analyzed text to teach that in the classroom. But before that, it is important for the teachers to be trained how to implement reading to learn. And that's the pedagogic training was aimed for. So the selection was to teach writings for argumentative IELTS, especially in task 2. Then we implement the research. Through the planning, we select classes and develop lesson plan. Then those are the result of our pilot project today. And in phase 2, is the implementation. So during the implementation, Nindya here is the teacher. So we designed this reading to learn pedagogy by adopting or design it into 3 stages. First is preparation for reading, second is detailed reading, and the last one is joint construction. So these 3 stages were implemented in the classroom, and we had video record for that, as well as collecting the samples of writing. But then the student were also asked to do their own writing after the class, or we call it as an independent construction. The result of these 2 phases of pilot project is the data that were collected. So we separated it into 2. The first data set is the official Cambridge Guide to IELTS, is collected from the book that the teacher and the student shared when they learned. So in this data set, what we do is we try to map the genres important for IELTS to fulfill the demand of IELTS writing task. For this, we sampled the model answer provided in the book, and we try to analyze that through Martins and Rose's genre analysis to learn what kind of key genres are important for their writing. And the second data set are the participants' essays, so respond to IELTS writing task 2. So there is this before and after the program, but as I mentioned before, this is not an action research. So we'll just see or outlined, paint a broad picture, what kind of result we got after this pilot study. And the participants' essay were then analyzed using the assessment rubric adapted from Reading to Learn that I and David Roses developed. So for this data analysis, the first result of the key genres will be outlined by me, and the second result of the data analysis will be outlined by Nindya. So as for the first discussion and finding, let's have a look at the key genres found in IELTS writing task 2. So you can see I outlined a table here. So in IELTS, the writing is always to do with responding a prompt question. And from the questions that we map, there are 2 main questions. It's either disagreement or to what extent do you agree or disagree? Those who took IELTS already familiar with this. And the other one who's less dominant, I would say. It's both truth and measurement, like how true or what measure you should take. So basically, the sample answers that we collected indicate that disagreement kind of prompt question is more dominant. And the response, the model answer to that prompt question is actually discussion genre. So it's actually a bit of counterintuitive. Those whose model answer is low scored usually only answered either they agree or disagree. But then the model answer, which are high scored, are actually outlined two sides. So in discussion, they indicate the result of the analysis of the model answer indicate 3 stages of discussion: issue, sides, and resolution. So it means that it is they expect the scorer or the rater expected the writers or the test taker to outline 2 sides of discussion or argumentative. Well, let's have a look at one example of this potential genre answer. So for this, a sample question is about an increasing number of people suffer from health problems as a result of eating too much fast food. And then there's this notion or claim that it's necessary for the government to impose higher tax for this kind of food. So basically raising taxes for fast food. And the question is to whether the test takers agree or disagree with the view. And as expected, the answer is a discussion genre. And it consists of 4 stages in this sense. The first one is the issue. And at the end of the first paragraph is the thesis statement. However, the question is whether higher tax would improve this situation or not. So this play an important role as the macro theme or the sentence which control the whole beginning of the rest of the paragraph. And I put bold in each of the beginning of the paragraph with an underline to indicate that the first side shows an economic point of view because it's to do with higher tax and it is sensible. And the second side or the third paragraph, is indicate with a concessive conjunction called however. We also need to consider which socioeconomic group consume fast food as the main part of their diet. So after talking about the economic point, they shift to socioeconomic point, the counter argument from the second paragraph. Then the last paragraph is concluded by, an in conclusion, a very classic conjunction to close text, which it is the resolution and indicates the author's answer. So if we go back to the previous slide, this typical discussion genre is more part of the model answer. And the hortatory exposition is not really popular, but it's still there. So when they are asked to do some sort of hortatory exposition, what they do is actually they need to provide actions, recommend or suggested actions or recommendations. I think that's all the key genres. We can now move on to Nindya to talk about the second result of the data.
Okay, thank you. In this section, I would like to address what we asked in our second research question about the linguistic challenges faced by the student as indicated by their IELTS writing achievement before and after the teacher's classroom teaching with R2L pedagogy. Using the data obtained from the sample essays that we collected from our participants, we assessed this essay using the rubric that we adapted from Kartika Ningsi 2016 and Rose 2019 studies. Based on these 2 rubrics, the 14 participants were categorized into 2 groups, the high attaining group and also low attaining group. The result of these pre-tasks that was assigned before the training served as a consideration for the selections of students' essay that later were analyzed in great detail using Rose and Martin's 2008 genre analysis. Next, I'm going to compare what these groups did in pre-task and also post-task. Okay, firstly, Let's take a closer look at the strength that both groups demonstrated in pre-tasks. From these pre-tasks, both groups were already aware with the genre. It is seen from how they wrote each paragraph that represents the stage of the text. A possible explanation for this is that because they were introduced to the stages of the text before this pedagogy was implemented. However, both groups faced difficulties in terms of the use of vocabulary, sentence structure, and unnatural word pairs as well. In addition, the participants in low-attaining group struggled to develop their ideas. All in all, in these pre-tasks, we identified that the room for improvement that we could make is on lexical grammar and idea development. And this is how Reading to Learn could help. Well, throughout this 5-hour training, some improvements are identified in their post-test. Firstly, both groups benefit from better genre awareness, which can be observed by better progressions throughout the text. Secondly, the high-attaining participants tend to try new words that they quote-unquote borrow from the text. This can be observed from one of the participants when she managed to use some new transition phrases which enrich her language repertoire. Surprisingly, this study also found that low-attaining group even has another strategy when presenting their argument. Instead of solely focusing on the main idea, the participant in this group used point of rebuttal as his strategy to prove their argument. In the high-attaining group, the student has demonstrated her ability to vary the transition word in her post-test, compared to the pre-test when she relies only on more common transition words. Now, she used new phrases to progress her idea in her post-test. These attempts indicates that she starts to develop her confidence in borrowing and using her newly acquired words. However, while the participants benefit from the better development of paragraph and control over their arguments, they still face difficulties on the lexical grammar level. It is still common to find some words that are used incorrectly or seem unnatural. In addition, although the participant consistently use complex sentences, the missing subject and verb agreement is still apparent in the essay. This result may be explained by the fact that training was conducted only for a short period amount of time, focusing more on how to respond to the IELTS writing questions. These findings is also consistent with that of Damayanti, 2017, who investigated R2L on the junior high school student story writing ability. This study revealed that though the stages and phases of the narratives could be identified in the student's writing, the poor use of vocabulary and grammatical structure still hindered the reader's understanding of their story. This comparison confirms that teachers indeed should exert a greater effort in teaching grammar and vocabulary. Now we come to our conclusion. Overall, returning to the questions that we posed at the beginning of the study has investigated two things. First, we identified the problems that students, both in low-attaining and high-attaining group, faced while writing IELTS Task 2, and also potential teaching stages that teachers can adapt. To achieve this, we investigated the students' linguistic competence that consists of their strength and weakness using two key genres commonly found in IELTS Writing Task 2, along with the rubric adapted from Kartika Ningsi 2016 and Rose 2019 to analyze the sample essay and answers. This research has also shown that besides being more informed with the genre and text stages, Participants in high and low attaining groups benefited from more nuanced topical words and also transition words and other strategies to control over their argument, such as the use of modality and points of rebuttals as well. However, the participants who were hindered by lexical-grammar issue, such as unnatural word combination and errors in subject and verb agreement. Taken together, these findings suggest an improved role for the detailed reading stage, where teachers can scaffold the use of vocabulary and grammar. In addition, the findings can be of interest to teachers who aspire to support their students' language learning that combines reading and writing, because this resonates with our belief. Let me conclude this presentation by emphasizing this belief. We believe that text can be a powerful tool, not only to learn, but also to motivate students, which is students' motivation is the most important quality that we need to sustain if we are to proliferate literacy in our country. Thank you very much for your attention.